trust and value. In ongoing uncertain times, in the face of very complex selling, it seems that these two words, more than any other, are the two that we continue to come back to and have for decades, really, as the secret recipe, or maybe the not so secret recipe, to win larger deals, to win over customers, to close a deal, to decrease cycle times, trust and value. If we could just demonstrate to a customer the value that we create, that ultimately is going to lead to trust. And if they see our value and they trust our brand, then they'll buy. I've talked in a number of these different episodes why that may in fact not be sufficient, necessary perhaps, but certainly not sufficient. But let's talk about those two terms specifically. And I think that the term the verb that often gets used, particularly with value, I think kind of gives you a sense for what happens in this world, right? So it makes a lot of sense. Trust and value, those two things have to be established. They have to be true. So the tendency is to think, well, let's demonstrate those two things, right? Let's demonstrate our value. Let's show you how much you can trust us. So what happens in this world of trust and value, more often than not, it seems, we come to the table already trying to win you over with the trust and the value that we think the trust we think we already deserve, and the value that we think is already clear. We just need to make it known to you. So we think of trust and value so nearly more as artifacts rather than as outcomes. Right? I'm going to demonstrate our value, but the ROI calculator, I'm going to show up with a sheet that shows a spreadsheet of some kind, and I'm going to show you, look at all the different ways I'm going to make you money or save you money across the next year or two. In terms of trust, I'm going to show you the page with all the logos on it from other companies that have put their trust in us. So you should put your trust in us too. And oh, by the way, we were founded in the back of a pickup truck in 1872, so we've been around for over 100 years. This is a brand that you can trust, and I've been doing this for 20 years, so you can trust me. So we come really to the table with a case for value and a case for trust essentially already built. But what if we thought about trust and value not so much as things that we have to demonstrate, so much as things that we have to generate through a dynamic process where trust and value are the outcomes of our engagement, of our interaction with our customers, rather than the beginning point. It's not a starting point, but an ending point, perhaps. And then we can actually start to ask questions like, how do I, through this specific engagement, begin to generate value? How do I begin to generate trust as opposed to demonstrate those two things? And then I think you begin to understand just how dynamic these dimensions of trust and value actually are, right? So that we can sit down with our customer and begin to explore what are the things that you're trying to achieve. This feels like basic sales 101, right? But then we say, oh, I can do that. I can do that. But rather, the way that you create value is actually, rather than say, oh, I can do that, and here's how much it's going to save you, to actually maybe ask a question and dig in a little deeper, challenge that thinking, show a different perspective, provide a different metric. I totally see where you're coming from. Have you thought about it like this? Here's a different way that we might be able to help, but here's a different way you might go after that journey irrespective of our help. Here's a way that two other companies like you have gone after that same process. Here's a different metric, a different tactic. Here's maybe a better timeline that's a little bit more realistic based on this evidence or this research. In having those conversations with your customers, you begin to not demonstrate your value, but to create something that is in itself valuable. Here's three other stakeholders that we know that you're probably going to need to talk to. If you talk to them, by the way, when you do, you're probably going to have this conversation, because we've found working with other customers like you that if you don't have it like this, things could go sideways in really frustrating ways. Notice this is a very dynamic conversation that creates value, as opposed to a static conversation that is simply meant to sort of demonstrate your value. Value is created in the creation of the relationship. And as a result, the outcome of all of that is, in fact, more trust. It's a very different way to think about it in some ways, but it feels sort of obvious on the surface. I don't think any of us would disagree that we need to generate trust, we need to generate value. But let's stop and think about how we actually go about doing that in a static way versus a dynamic way. That, in fact, the starting point of a relationship, even with an existing customer, is a low level of perhaps trust or lower level of value. Maybe some of that's already established, but let's think about that glass being maybe actually half full at the beginning and see what we can do to fill it up all the way, rather than just assuming, because we've done this for 100 years or we've worked with you for the last 10 of those, that trust or that value cup is already full. And let's think about, what can we do from this point forward to generate value? What can we do from this point forward to generate ever greater trust, rather than relying on what we believe is the value and the trust that we've earned already?